Hello, everybody. This is Aston Osai, Superintendent of St. Louis Park Public Schools, and you're listening to the Share the Mic podcast, the show that explores what connects our school community, who we are as individuals, and who we are as a collective. Through conversations with students, staff, and community members, we'll talk about what brings us joy, our hopes and dreams, and our connection to our strategic plan for racial equity transformation. Well, hello there, Erika. Thank you so much for joining the Share the Mic podcast. I'm super excited to have a conversation with you today. I've had an opportunity over the past 6 years. I can't believe that it's already been 6 years that I've been here in St. Louis Park Public Schools, but to get to know you, of your work. And when I was thinking about guests to join me here, you were one of the first names that came to mind. So I was wondering if you would be willing to just share with our community a little bit about who you are and more about your role.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of it. I appreciate it. So my name is Erika Scott, and I'm originally from the East Coast. My husband and I moved here from Boston 17 years ago. I was pregnant with my daughter when we moved here, and I was an elementary school teacher in the Boston area for 8 years, and when we moved here, I decided to take a break from teaching to stay home with my kids. And we moved here, and I had my daughter Brooke, who's now a junior at the high school, and then eventually my son Evan came along. He's a freshman at the high school. But when we first moved to the community of St. Louis Park, I didn't know very many people, and I was looking for an opportunity to connect with people in the community. So I signed up for an ECFE class when Brooke was 6 weeks old, and I joined that class. And I will tell you that from being in that ECFE class, I made friendships that I still have today, now that she's a 16-year-old girl. So I was home with my kids for a few years and then was ready to go back to teaching, and I made my segue back into the teaching world as an early childhood special ed para in the early learning department. And I was a para for a few years, and then I moved into a gen ed teaching role. And I've been at the Central Early Learning Center for 10 years. Most recently, I moved into the Early Learning Program Supervisor position in February, which is really exciting.
Hey, congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, we're excited to have you in that role. So I often wonder about being an educator in different regions of the country. So I know you spent many years in Boston as a teacher, and then came here and have been in Minnesota for 17 years, 10 years of which you've been working here in St. Louis Park Public Schools. What are some of the major differences that you have experienced between educating here in the Midwest and educating on the East Coast?
I have to say that one of the things that struck me when we moved here is there wasn't any reciprocity with licensure for the state of Minnesota. So that means anyone who's moving into Minnesota has to take the teacher license test, which I think says a lot about the high standards of education that exist here. And I loved the opportunity of teaching in the Boston area and had wonderful mentors and colleagues. I will say that I have been impressed by the St. Louis Park schools and the mission statement and the core values and way that that's wrapped into every aspect of the way that we are teaching our children. As far as being an educator, I think that we're very progressive here, and we're I feel like we're kind of constantly trying to move into different ways to reach our children in a meaningful and authentic way.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more. It was more just around my curiosity, as I've never had an opportunity to be an educator anywhere outside of the Midwest. So thank you for sharing that. You know, Erika, you started to touch a little bit about one of the differences, which is our mission, strategic plan, and you highlight the core values as well. You know, as a early education educator, how do you see the core values or our mission showing up on a daily basis at Central Community Center?
Well, one of the things that's most important to me as an educator is a focus on developing authentic relationships within the community. And so the Central Early Learning Center and the programs that I manage they fall under the community education umbrella. And I think that there is within every person a true desire to be part of a community and to have this feeling of a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And so I feel that that is one, I mean, it's one of the core values of the St. Louis Park Schools, is one of my whys for being, in the role that I'm in, is to be able to be a valuable and contributing member to a vibrant community. I think St. Louis Park, the city of St. Louis Park, is truly a vibrant community with strong connections between the school and the city. The focus on racial equity and developing critical consciousness for children, quite young up through 12th grade is something I've never experienced before. And I see at the Central Early Learning Center, we have about 565 families who we serve, ages 0 to 5. There are 3 main programs. It's the Early Childhood Special Education Program, there's ECFE and Early Learning Half-Day Preschool, and then there's Kids Place Full-Day Preschool. But we all work kind of collectively as a community to serve the youngest citizens of St. Louis Park. And part of doing that is really welcoming the families into our building with open arms, warm, welcoming atmosphere. And we're trying to kind of create this sense of belonging so that any family who walks through our doors, either with an infant or a 5-year-old, that they're greeted by name and they're welcomed in, and people see them and develop relationships with them. And so I think we're really seeking the brilliance of our students, and we're also seeking the brilliance of the parents and the caregivers as well. And we can recognize that some of the parents and caregivers who walk through our building might be from marginalized communities where they have some distrust that they've built up in the system. So I think it's our mission to really create this atmosphere where everyone feels seen and heard and empowered, and a place where they really truly feel like they belong.
Oh, I love it. As I was listening to you, I was thinking about my experience as a parent. I have my youngest was a student at Central Community Center and was as a part of the program and had a great experience. And I was kind of reflecting on my experience as a parent and thinking about this sense of belonging that you were describing and how he felt a part of that community, and how my wife and I, as parents of a student there, felt the same thing. So certainly know that I experienced that, and it's my hope that other parents are experiencing that as well, because that's so important, particularly for many families. This is their first experience with St. Louis Park Public Schools, and coming into this program, and for a lot of families, this may be the first time that their child is experiencing any sort of, outside of home care. So I think that the focus on community and belonging is really important. And one of the questions I was going to ask you, which I think you started to share a little bit about, is your why, because I know you to be an exceptional educator. You can work anywhere you want to in the state of Minnesota, but you choose to work here in St. Louis Park Public Schools. And I was wondering if you would be willing just to share a little bit about your why. Like, why do you continue to serve in the field of public education, but why, and also why do you do that here in St. Louis Park Public Schools?
Well, it goes back to that sense of community and wanting to be a contributing member to the thriving community. But I think what's unique about St. Louis Park that I worked in a wonderful district in Massachusetts, but there is this, this focus on lifelong learning, and I feel that the professional development opportunities that we are exposed to as educators here really cause us to take a real look at who we are and what our lived experiences have been, and maybe what sorts of perspectives have been missing in our education growing up, and to recognize that we're serving a really diverse community. And I think that the equity work that we've done personally has been transformational for me in recognizing the privilege that I have experienced as a white woman growing up in this world, and the way that I move through this world with an ease that some of my peers of color have not had the opportunity to do. So I feel like St. Louis Park has really caused me to continue to grow and learn and strive to kind of be the best globally minded, racially conscious educator I can be. But I know that that's a journey, and it's constantly shifting, and I need to just keep an open mind and keep learning.
Yeah, As do I. I appreciate your reflection and just this understanding that it's not like there's a destination to get to this place of, ultimate understanding or consciousness, but this is it's a journey. Really understanding who you are racially and culturally, and striving to work towards proficiency in other races and cultures. So thank you for sharing that. One of the intentions that I set for myself this school year was really trying to show up every day, like embodying the spirit of gratitude. I think gratitude is so important, not only for others around us, but I think it's important for us as individuals, because embodying a spirit of gratitude, at least for me, has allowed me to really show up with my glass half full as opposed to my glass being half empty. And I would say, the last couple of years for us in public education has been hard. And, it's no surprise that many of people who have who chose this profession decided to do other things, or some are continuing to kind of work through and coming out of the pandemic with I would suggest somewhat of a sour taste in their mouth because of everything they experienced over the past couple of years. But what I was wondering is there something or someone that who that has inspired you or has uplifted you and has gotten you to the point where it seems like you have a great deal of energy around educating our youngest learners here in St. Louis Park Public Schools?
It has been a hard few years for educators. I think people are feeling burnt out, and I can see how they're kind of some people might be coming to the position with the glass half empty. But I do think that spirit of gratitude does kind of center you and help you to be more present. And I am truly grateful for the colleagues who I have the privilege of working with at the Central Early Learning Center. I will say, never have I worked in a building where I feel like teachers care so deeply for their students and really strive to develop those authentic relationships with parents. And you see students and parents sailing into the building, running into the building, happy, smiling, and it's because, they're greeted by teachers who are really, so happy that they're there. One of the people who I think has really inspired me and supported me well is my colleague, Jody Miller. She is an early childhood special education teacher. She grew up in St. Louis Park. She is a 30-year veteran in the school, so she's been here for a long time. And she just, I think, embodies St. Louis Park's core values in the sense that she really is flexible and seeks the brilliance of the students and the parents, and is kind of, she's an amazing problem solver. And boy, we've had a lot of problems to solve over the past couple of years.
Just a few,
just
right?
a few.
Just a few.
So completely revamping the way we deliver education. So, just being able to lean on her for her support and for her guidance, and particularly as I moved to transition into a leadership role, she's someone who truly inspires me. The other day I was talking to her, and she was reflecting on a conference that she had with a family, and she said, I just started crying because I love him so much. And I was like, you know what? For you to just feel that level of emotion because you have connected so well with the student and the family, that's so heartwarming. And I think that, she's not the only person in the building who's that way, but she has truly been an inspiring and supportive colleague to me.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's sometimes hard, when you work with such amazing people to just choose one person, because I'm sure you can go down the list and name 20 different people, right, that have had a tremendous impact. But I believe that, for Jody, hopefully she'll have a chance to listen to this and to just know that, 30 years here in this organization, touching and influencing the hearts and minds of students and families and colleagues, that she's making a difference. And it's my hope that all of our colleagues here in St. Louis Park who come to work every single day with that same type of mindset and love for the profession are hearing from either students or from colleagues or from families about the impact that they're having. In our profession, I would say sometimes you don't always hear the good things or the impact that you're having. So I want to make it a habit that when I get a chance to interview wonderful guests like you, that we pause for a second, and if there's somebody or someone that we should acknowledge, that we certainly take the time to do so. And I'm thankful that you were willing to share a little bit more about
she's
Jody
special.
today. Absolutely. And I could see like the joy in your eyes as you were talking about Jody.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, is there like what brings you joy? And I would assume that it has something to do with children, brilliance, inspiring the brilliance, and just building the community. But I would love to hear a little bit more about what brings you joy on a daily basis.
So, when your son was at Central, it was still kind of COVID times, and parents weren't really allowed back in the building, which is hard for parents who are dropping 3 and 4-year-olds off and not being able to walk them to the classroom door. So something that's truly been bringing us joy is we're greeting families at the door, and we're watching these kids just run in. And most recently with the snow, the contrast between the parents' faces and the kids' faces is pretty stark. The kids are having such joy, feeling such excitement over the snow, and parents are feeling a little grumpy. But overall, just having everyone back in the building together, parents are craving a sense of community. Many of these parents of 3 and 4-year-olds had really little babies when COVID hit. So think about how isolating that is when you're a new parent and you can't get out in the community, you can't connect with other people who are going through the same experiences you're going through. So I just feel that the parents in our community are just craving opportunities to be in community with one another, to connect, to build friendships. And we are working really hard with our LPAC, the Early Learning Parent Advisory Council, to rebuild it and to create opportunities centered around parent voice. What do you as parents want to see as a way to connect with one another in our school? What would be valuable to you? So we've been able to host some community events where tons of people are coming out. We have a parent education evening tomorrow night called "'Tis the Season," meltdowns, big feelings, and overstimulation, which is really appropriate for preschool. Anyway, so we're just trying to listen to parents, connect with parents, and so I truly see joy in those relationships that are being built that I think families have really missed out on over the past couple of years.
No, absolutely. And having been a parent that was experiencing, Central Community Center early learning program during the pandemic, I know the difference between having to kind of drop your child at the door as opposed to being able to go in, take your child to their classroom, and through that, developing relationships with all of the wonderful adults in the building. And I would imagine also that a lot of our families didn't really understand or have an opportunity to see the wonderful transformation of that facility, right? As a part of our 2017 bond referendum, which I just want to thank our community for their support of St. Louis Park Public Schools, we were able to completely redo that building and make sure that we can create classroom spaces that were developmentally appropriate for children in that age range. So I'm glad that we are able to now have families coming back into the building and engaging in relationships with staff differently than they have over the past couple of years. Just knowing how wonderful of a program it is, if there are parents, guardians, caregivers, family members that are looking for an early learning experience for their child, what would you tell them, like why they should choose St. Louis Park Public Schools early learning program?
Well, what's so unique, there are a lot of wonderful preschools out there, but what's so unique about our program is we're directly connected to the St. Louis Park Public Schools. So that means that our teachers are licensed, they engage in the same level of professional development that K through 12 teachers do. The mission and core values of the district is woven into everything we do in the Central Early Learning Center. So the other thing is there are different curriculum design reviews that are going on, and like most recently, the math design review was rolled out, and so kids who come to the Central Early Learning Center are engaging with the Bridges to Mathematics program that all kindergartners are going to engage with. So, I think that our curriculum is robust. We follow a Scholastic Big Day for Pre-K program, a Handwriting Without Tears, and a social emotional curriculum as well. So we really pack our day with really high quality curriculum that I think just rolls over really nicely into the kindergarten experience. And if children come to preschool or ECFE in St. Louis Park at the Central Early Learning Center, they're making friends with their future elementary school classmates. And if the parents are engaging in the Early Learning Parent Advisory Council, they are making, those connections so that when they make the transition to the elementary school, there already is that sense of belonging that exists and that connectedness. And I think that's it truly, like for me, when my kids were really little and I was in ECFE, that's when I started to feel the beautiful community that we have and the friendships that I established that I still hold dear to my heart. That started when my kids were just months old, So I think that it's a really special, joyful place with teachers who care deeply about their kids, teachers who care deeply about creating a racially equitable learning environments where children and parents feel seen and heard. I think it's just... I think it's a special place to be.
Yeah, I agree. And as a person who has experienced the program, everything you said rings true in my experience. So thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm just happy that we got a chance to sit down for a few minutes and talk a little bit about your leadership, our wonderful program here in St. Louis Park Public Schools. So kind of as a form of closing, one of the things that I like to do is just take a moment, what we consider like a mic drop, right? So in closing, if there's anything else you would want listeners to know about you, our early learning program, or just anything in general, this is your time to share. Yeah,
I've touched on it a few times, but really my focus and my mission in this leadership role is to create an experience for St. Louis Park's youngest learners where they feel and their parents feel like they truly belong, and that this is the place where people will see who they are, want to hear what they have to say, and have them be part of the voice of what we do in our building. And so creating that sense of belonging is really something that we as a staff at the Central Early Learning Center are firmly committed to.
That's amazing. Well, I know several leaders here in the district that are eager to be your neighbors soon over at Central Community Center. I know right now the other side of Central is under construction, and maybe around spring break should be completed. So there'll be district office staff moving in that I'm sure would be more than willing to lend a helping hand and build relationships and become part of this wonderful community. So thank you so much for your leadership of our earliest learners here in St. Louis Park Public Schools, and to all of your colleagues at Central Community Center. Just want to thank them as well, and I've really appreciated our time together today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. This has been Shared or Mike. I'm Aston Osai, Superintendent of St. Louis Park Public Schools.